The red sun of Mars was setting, throwing long shadows across the empty wasteland. The wind carried thin dust over the metal ruins of old mining machines. In the middle of this forgotten place stood a small workshop built from junk and hope. Inside, a man worked alone. His name was Eli Grant, a human mechanic, poor but skilled. His hands were black with grease, his clothes torn from years of hard work. He fixed broken drones and old cargo bots for small credits, barely enough to eat. Still, he never complained. Machines listened better than people, and Eli liked it that way. That night, the air was unusually quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop. Eli lifted his head, sensing something wrong. Then the ground trembled, a low, deep sound like thunder trapped underground. The lights in his workshop flickered. He stepped outside and saw the sky burning. A fireball crossed the heavens, growing larger, brighter, until it broke the silence with a roar that shook the sand. It wasn't a meteor, it was a ship, huge and alien, trailing blue flames. It crashed into the desert hills beyond his workshop, lighting the horizon like a sunrise. Eli didn't think twice. He grabbed his old oxygen mask, a tool bag, and jumped on his hover bike. Curiosity burned stronger than fear. He raced toward the crash, kicking up clouds of red dust behind him. When he reached the site, his eyes widened. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a city block. Strange glowing symbols pulsed across its cracked hull, alive like veins of light. The air shimmered with heat and static energy. A deep metallic groan echoed from the ship's side. Something inside was moving. Eli's heart pounded. He could turn back now, pretend he never saw it. But his mind whispered, someone might be alive in there. He climbed through a broken opening in the hull. The metal was hot, the air thick with smoke and a strange sweet smell. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Inside, he saw walls made of silver glass and machines shaped like living creatures. He'd never seen technology like this before. Then through the smoke, he heard a soft sound, a voice weak and pained. Help, please. Eli froze. The voice wasn't human. It was deep, echoing, almost musical. He followed it and found a massive door half broken open. Inside lay two figures, giants, glowing faintly in the dark. They were aliens, female in shape but much larger, each over 10 feet tall. Their skin shimmered like liquid metal. Their eyes dim like dying stars. One tried to move but gasped in pain. Stay still, Eli said quietly, not sure if they understood. I'll help. He looked around. The control panels were fried. The power lines were burning out. He could fix simple machines, not alien tech, but he could try. He pulled open his tool bag and started working, using what he knew. The smaller of the two aliens, her hair glowing silver, watched him carefully. The other, older one, had sharper eyes and a crown-like ridge on her head. She spoke in her language, a string of tones and light, but the younger translated weakly. She says, "You are human. You should not be here." Eli gave a half smile. "You shouldn't be crashed either." For a moment, the younger one, Lona, almost laughed. The older, Xarth, did not. She looked at him as if weighing his soul. Eli worked for hours, patching wires, sealing leaks, rerouting power with makeshift adapters. He didn't understand the alien design, but machines all spoke the same way when they were dying. He listened to the hum, the heat, the pulse, and slowly brought life back into the main system. When the ship's engine core flickered, Lona gasped with relief. But Xarth stared out the window, eyes wide with fear. "Something is coming," she said in a low tone. Eli followed her gaze. Across the desert, distant lights moved. Patrol drones, maybe human, maybe alien. Whoever they were, they weren't coming to help. Lona's voice trembled. "If they find us, they will kill us." Eli swallowed hard. "Then we hide you." He ran back to his workshop and returned dragging an old camouflage shield he'd built years ago from scrap. He set it up around the ship, linking its power to the ship's own weak energy source. A shimmer spread like a curtain, bending the light until the giant ship vanished into the red dust. Xarth looked at the small human, sweat dripping from his face, hands shaking but determined. For the first time, she didn't see weakness. She saw courage. As the last of the light faded, Eli leaned against the wall, exhausted. "You're safe for now," he said softly. The older sister stared at him in silence, then finally asked, "Why would you help strangers? Even enemies?" Eli looked up, his eyes tired but calm. "Because no one else will." And in that moment, under the dusty Mars sky, a bond was born. Between a poor human mechanic and two alien princesses who would one day change the fate of the stars. The wind rose again, covering the ship's tracks.
No one in the colonies knew what had fallen that night.
But Eli Grant's quiet act of kindness had just awakened the attention of an entire empire. And far above the clouds, in the deep dark of space, something powerful had begun to move. The night stretched long and cold over the Martian desert. Inside the damaged alien ship, the hum of weak engines echoed like a heartbeat. Eli sat against the metal wall, breathing heavily. His arms ached from hours of work, but his eyes stayed sharp. He had hidden two alien giants inside his little world of junk, and now he had to keep them alive. The younger sister, Lona, slept on a tilted seat, her silver hair dimly glowing. The older one, Xarth, stood near a broken console, watching Eli as if she still couldn't believe a human dared to touch their royal ship. "You are reckless," she said finally, her deep voice calm but sharp. "You have no idea what danger you bring on yourself." Eli didn't look up from the circuit board he was fixing. "Yeah," he said, "but danger's kind of a friend out here." Xarth frowned. "Do you not fear death?" He gave a small smile. "I'm a mechanic on Mars, Your Highness. Death already owes me rent." Lona stirred and giggled softly. Xarth's eyes softened for half a second, then hardened again. She turned away, her gaze distant. Through the cracks in the ship's hull, the sky shimmered with faint red light, the reflection of search drones scanning the desert far away. Eli noticed. "They're closer tonight," Xarth nodded. "They belong to the Empire's hunters. If they find us, they will destroy everything, including you." Eli checked the shield generator he'd built around the ship. It was holding, but only just. The power core inside the alien craft was unstable. It could fail at any time. He looked at his little toolkit, a handful of human tools trying to fix a ship built by gods. Still, he refused to stop. Machines were puzzles, and puzzles could always be solved. He pulled off his gloves and reached into a tangle of alien wires that glowed blue. The energy burned his fingers, but he kept working. Sparks burst, smoke rose, but the circuits began to hum in harmony again. Slowly, the power lights turned green. Lona sat up, her eyes wide. "You fixed it!" Eli shook his hand, trying to hide the pain. "Not yet. Just a patch. She needs a full rebuild." Xarth watched him silently. "You risk your life for us. You do not even know who we are." Eli wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Doesn't matter who you are. You're hurt and I can help. That's enough." For the first time, Xarth had no reply. Her kind believed humans were selfish scavengers, too weak for real courage. Yet this poor mechanic covered in dirt and blood was proving her wrong with every turn of a wrench. Suddenly a loud beep filled the cabin. Eli's eyes widened. On the screen, several bright dots blinked. "Incoming signals. Drones," he whispered. "4 of them. Headed straight for us," Lona gasped. "They will find us." Xarth took command instantly. "Prepare to fly." Eli grabbed her arm. "You can't. The ship's core isn't ready. If you push it now, it'll explode." "Then we die fighting," Xarth growled. Eli stared at her, a giant warrior, proud and fearless, then looked at Lona's frightened face. He made his choice. "No, we live smart." He ran to his workshop outside the ship and pulled a heavy cable from his generator. The wind howled as he connected it to the alien power port. "Come on, old girl," he muttered to his generator. "Don't quit on me now." The machine screamed, sparks flying, but energy surged into the alien core. The lights inside the ship brightened, systems rebooting. Eli's small generator shook like it was alive, then caught fire. He kicked it aside just as the ship roared awake. The sound was deafening. The ground cracked beneath them as the thrusters fired. The patrol drone spotted the energy burst immediately and turned toward the crash site. "Go!" Eli shouted. Lona hesitated. "What about you?" Eli smiled. "I'll catch the next ride." But before he could step back, Lona's huge hand reached out, grabbed him by his jacket, and lifted him effortlessly into the ship.
"No," she said softly.
"You come with us." The ship shot upward, tearing through the dust storm like a thunderbolt. The patrol drones fired plasma beams, but the ship's shields held. Eli clung to the floor as the desert vanished beneath them. Xarth looked at him, her tone cold but steady. "You are aboard royal property, human. Do not touch anything." Eli laughed breathlessly. "Trust me, princess, I've had enough touching for one day." Lona smiled. Xarth almost did too. Almost. Outside, Mars shrank into a red dot. Inside, a human mechanic sat between two alien sisters, unsure where he was going, but certain of one thing. He had just crossed a line no human had ever crossed before. And far away, in the silent dark of space, a signal pulsed through the void. A message sent to the Xarth Emperor. The princesses are alive, and they are with a human. The stars stretched endlessly around the alien ship, cold and silent. For the first time in his life, Eli Grant was above Mars, flying faster than he could ever imagine. Yet instead of wonder, fear filled his heart. The ship trembled, alarms echoed, and strange alien symbols flashed red across the walls. The two giant sisters, Xira and Lona, moved quickly through the glowing corridors. They spoke in their language, a mix of music and light. Eli followed, holding onto the wall to keep his balance. The ship was not built for humans. Every step felt like walking through a storm. "What's happening?" he called out. Xira glanced at him, her silver eyes glowing like fire. "The patrols have locked on. We are being hunted." "Hunted? By who?" "Our own fleet," she said. "The Empire believes we are dead. Anyone fleeing the crash site will be treated as enemies." Eli's stomach dropped. "You mean they'll shoot you down?" Xira's expression hardened. "They will not hesitate." The deck shook violently. A bright light flashed outside. The first laser blast grazed the hull. Eli fell to his knees as metal screeched and smoke filled the air. Lona grabbed him, pulling him up with ease. "Stay behind us," she shouted. Eli nodded, heart pounding. The sisters rushed to the cockpit. It was massive, with a wide, transparent dome showing the endless void. Dozens of small alien fighters zipped toward them like glowing knives. Xira took the pilot seat, her hands moving over floating symbols. The controls responded instantly, and the ship spun away from the laser fire. Lona operated defense shields, her fingers tracing alien patterns in midair. Eli stood back, amazed by the beauty and terror of it all. "Can I help?" he asked. Xira didn't answer. She was too focused, but Lona pointed to a glowing blue panel. "There. Stabilizer is breaking. Hold that lever when I say." Eli ran to it, gripping the metal handle as the ship rolled. Every muscle in his arm screamed. "Like this?" "Now pull!" He yanked the lever down. The engines roared louder, the ship steadied, and the shields flickered back online. Xira gave him a quick look, half surprise, half respect. "Not bad," she said. "For a human." Eli grinned weakly. "Glad to impress royalty." The next blast hit harder, sending the ship spinning again. Xira growled. "They are forcing us toward the nebula." Eli looked out and saw it, a swirling storm of blue gas and lightning in the distance. It glowed like a living creature. "What happens if we go in there?" Xira's answer was cold. "We might die," Eli sighed. "Better than sitting here waiting." The ship dove into the nebula. Lightning danced across the hull, and strange electric waves crawled through the walls. Systems began to fail. Screens flickered, lights dimmed, engines screamed. Lona cried out, "Shields dropping!" "Hold her steady!" Xira barked. Eli saw the stabilizer panel crackling again. Without thinking, he tore off part of his shirt, wrapped it around his hand, and pushed his arm deep into the smoking port. Sparks burned his skin, but the power line held. The ship jerked upward, escaping another blast. The fighters following them entered the storm too, but one by one their systems failed. Blue lightning swallowed them whole. After what felt like forever, the ship burst out of the nebula, trailing smoke but alive. The stars beyond were quiet again. No more enemies. Eli slumped to the floor, gasping. Lona knelt beside him, worry in her eyes. "You're hurt." He looked at his burned hand. "Just a scratch." Xira turned from the console. "You could have been killed." "Yeah," Eli said, grinning faintly. "But we're still flying, aren't we?" For a moment, silence filled the cockpit. Then Lona laughed softly, a sound like chimes. Xira didn't laugh, but her gaze softened. "You are reckless," she said, "but useful." Eli looked out the window. "So, where exactly are we going?" Xira's eyes darkened. "To Xarth space. Home," Lona added quietly. "Our father, the Emperor, will know what to do." Eli nodded slowly. "Good. Maybe he can tell me how to get home too." But neither sister spoke. They exchanged a quick, uneasy glance. Eli noticed. "What?" he asked. Lona looked down. "The Emperor hasn't answered our calls in weeks. Something is wrong in the Empire." Eli frowned. "Wrong how?" Xira's voice was low, almost like a warning. "There is war. Betrayal within the royal fleet. And if word spreads that 2 royal heirs live, with a human by their side, Every hunter in the galaxy will come for us. Eli leaned back, trying to breathe through the shock. He had gone from fixing broken drones to being chased by interstellar soldiers and trapped in a royal war. He looked at the sisters and said quietly, "Guess I picked a bad day to be a good person." Xarth gave him a rare, faint smile. "No, human. You picked the only day that mattered." Outside, in the cold silence of space, the ship limped forward, 3 unlikely souls bound by fate, flying toward a world of danger and secrets waiting to unfold. And somewhere in the vast dark, a transmission blinked alive on an enemy ship's screen. Target confirmed. The Royal Sisters and the human mechanic. The ship floated silently through space, leaving the violent nebula far behind. Inside, only the soft hum of the engines remained. The chaos was over, but tension filled the air like smoke after a fire. Eli Grant sat by a small viewport staring at the stars. They didn't twinkle here. They burned sharp and steady like frozen fires in the dark. He still couldn't believe where he was. Miles beyond Mars, inside a royal alien ship with 2 sisters who could crush him with one hand yet had trusted him enough to save their lives. He smiled to himself. "Not bad for a mechanic with a leaky roof," he muttered. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed. It was Lona, the younger sister. She had changed into a simpler metallic robe glowing faintly blue. Her kind eyes made her look almost human. "You should rest," she said gently. "You were hurt." Eli flexed his burned hand. "It's nothing. I've had worse fixing garbage drones." She sat beside him, her large frame moving carefully so the floor didn't shake. "You're strange for a human," she said. "Most of your kind fear us," he chuckled. "I fear a lot of things, just not enough to stop doing stupid stuff." Lona tilted her head, trying to understand. "Then you are brave." Eli shook his head. "No, just stubborn." There was a quiet moment between them. The stars drifted by like slow-moving ghosts. Lona looked out the window. "When I was small," she said softly, "our father used to show us the constellations of Xarth. He said each star was a soul of a warrior who died with honor." Eli nodded. "My mother said stars were wishes that got stuck in the sky." Lona smiled sadly. "That sounds kinder." In the distance, footsteps echoed again, firm, powerful. Xarth entered the room. Her presence filled the air. She wore silver armor that reflected the ship's lights, and her face was calm, unreadable. She looked at Eli. "The engines are stable again thanks to your patchwork, but we have lost contact with the Royal Command. No signals from the Emperor." Eli frowned. "You think he's in danger?" Xarth's jaw tightened. "If he lives, he is surrounded by enemies. If he is dead," her voice trailed off, "then the throne will burn." Lona looked down. "Our own generals turned against us. They said humans corrupted the Empire. They blamed our peace talks with your colonies." Eli blinked. "Wait, peace talks? You were trying to make peace with humans?" Xarth's eyes narrowed. "Yes, until someone destroyed the treaty ship 2 months ago. Thousands died. The humans were blamed. War followed." Eli stared at her, stunned. "That wasn't us. Humans couldn't even reach your space back then." "I know," Xarth said quietly. "But truth doesn't matter when blood has already been spilled." Silence fell again. The hum of the ship filled the void between them. For the first time, Eli understood how deep the galaxy's wounds were. He wasn't just lost in space, he was trapped inside a storm of politics and revenge older than his world. Xarth turned to him suddenly. "Tell me, human, why did you really help us? You could have left us to die." Eli looked up at her. "Because I saw people who needed help. That's all. Even knowing we could kill you?" He gave a tired grin. "You still might." Lona laughed softly. "He's honest." Xarth looked at him for a long time, then finally nodded. "Maybe honesty is the rarest strength in the galaxy." Eli shrugged. "Or the dumbest." Before anyone could answer, the ship's lights flickered. The console near Xarth beeped, an incoming signal, faint and distorted. Xarth rushed to the controls. "It's from the Royal Beacon." Lona's eyes lit up. "Father?" The message crackled through static. A deep voice echoed, broken but clear enough to freeze the air. "Xarth, Lona, if you hear this, the Empire is no longer safe. Trust no one. And beware the High Council." Then silence. Xarth clenched her fists. "The Council betrayed him," Lona whispered. "Then we must go home. We must find him." Eli stood beside them. "And what happens when we get there?" Zira looked at him, her eyes glowing with both fire and fear. We fight for the truth, Eli sighed. Figures. I fix ships, not wars. Lona smiled softly. Sometimes the smallest spark starts the biggest fire. Outside, the alien stars shimmered brighter as if listening. The ship changed course toward the golden heart of the Xarth Empire, a place of power, danger and destiny, and somewhere deep inside, Eli Grant felt something strange stirring, a feeling that he, a poor mechanic from Mars, might be more than just a bystander in the story of the stars. The Xarth star map glowed on the control screen, filling the cockpit with cold blue light. Around them, the ship floated in the black sea of space, quiet, scarred, and far from home. Zira stood at the controls, her tall figure shining like a statue of silver fire. Lona sat beside her, checking readings with gentle hands, and in the back, Eli Grant, the poor human mechanic, tried to fix what alien engineers would have called impossible. The power core was still unstable. Energy leaks pulsed through the floor like a heartbeat. Every hum reminded Eli that the ship could explode if he made one wrong move. He tightened a bolt, sparks flying. Who builds a reactor that breathes? He muttered. Lona looked over her shoulder. Our kind believes machines live like us. The ship listens. It feels, Eli grinned. Then your ship must really hate me. Zira's voice came sharp but calm. It hates weakness. Prove you are stronger than it. Eli wiped sweat from his brow. Yeah, that's motivational. In a terrifying way. The sisters exchanged a glance. Zira rarely joked, but for a brief moment something soft crossed her face. Respect. Then the ship's warning alarm shrieked. The lights dimmed, screens flickered red. Zira's head turned fast. Incoming anomaly! Eli looked up. What now? Lona pointed ahead. A vast cloud of glowing blue gas filled the window, a living storm. Lightning twisted through it like dragons of light. The Ion Nebula, Lona whispered. No ship crosses it and survives. Zira frowned. We have no choice. The Council's patrols control all other routes. Through it, or we're caught. Eli peered at the swirling storm. It looked alive, hungry. Through it is death. Zira's voice was steady. So is being found. Without another word, she pushed the throttle. The ship dove straight toward the storm. The moment they entered, everything changed. The light outside turned to blue fire. Energy waves slammed against the hull. The ship screamed as if in pain. Eli grabbed the railing. You said it feels. Well, tell it to stop dying. Lona tried to stabilize the shields, her fingers flying over alien controls. Power dropping fast. Zira gritted her teeth. Hold the line! But then a blast hit the rear engine. Sparks burst everywhere. Systems went dark. The ship spun, rolling like a falling star. Eli tumbled across the floor, hitting the console. We're losing stabilizers. I know, Zira shouted, gripping the controls. Eli's eyes darted to a flickering screen. The energy conduit was rupturing. If it overloaded, the ship would blow apart. Without thinking, he ran toward the reactor chamber. Eli, wait, Lona cried. But he didn't stop. The metal doors hissed open, revealing a chamber full of lightning. The reactor core glowed white-hot, surrounded by spinning rings of alien metal. Every instinct told him to run, but he'd never been one to listen to fear. He grabbed his human toolkit, found the thickest wire, and started working. Zira's voice crackled through the speaker. Human, get out of there! Not a chance, he shouted back. Someone's got to save your fancy light ball. He used a wrench to reroute the energy flow. The power jumped, shocking his arms, burning his hands, but the readings began to stabilize. The ship's hum deepened, stronger now, steadier. Then silence. Zira and Lona stared at the screen. The energy levels were holding. Lona gasped, tears shining in her eyes. He did it. Zira whispered softly, almost to herself. No human has ever. Eli stumbled back into the cockpit minutes later, covered in soot, hair standing up like he'd wrestled lightning. Good news, he said, breathing hard. We're not dead. Lona ran to him, kneeling to his level. You could have been killed. Eli smiled faintly. Could have, yeah. But then who'd fix your ship? Zira looked at him, her usual sternness fading. You risked your life for us again. Why? Eli looked up at her, his voice calm but firm. Because that's what mechanics do. We fix what's broken, even if it fights back. For a moment, Zira said nothing. Then she stepped closer, towering over him, yet her tone softened. Maybe your kind isn't as weak as the council says. Eli met her eyes. And maybe yours isn't as heartless as I thought. The silence that followed wasn't cold anymore. It was warm. Real. The ship floated out of the nebula's far edge, scarred but alive. Behind them, blue lightning faded into darkness. Before them stretched the glowing systems of the Xarth Empire, 1,000 golden stars connected by threads of light. Xira stood tall, eyes fixed ahead. We are close to home, Lona smiled softly at Eli. Home? And maybe hope. Eli leaned against the wall, exhausted but smiling. If your home's anything like your ship, I better start praying now. Xira almost smiled. Almost. Outside, the ship glided toward the shining heart of alien civilization, unaware that their arrival would awaken something even more dangerous than the nebula, the wrath of the Emperor himself. And deep within the Xarth capital, a voice echoed across the royal fleet. Prepare the throne world. The lost princesses are returning. With a human. The sky above Xarth Prime was made of gold and storm. Lightning flashed through the upper clouds, not natural lightning, but energy veins from the city-sized defense grid. The royal capital floated like a glowing crown above the planet's surface, vast, ancient, and full of secrets. Eli Grant stood by the viewing glass, watching as the alien world came into sight. Towers taller than mountains rose from the oceans, glowing blue under the twin suns. Ships as large as cities drifted between them like silent giants. It was more than anything human eyes had ever seen. And yet, for the first time, Eli didn't feel awe. He felt small. Xira stood beside him, her silver armor shining faintly under the ship's light. We are home, she said, her voice calm but tight. Lona's eyes softened. Home, she repeated, but her tone carried both relief and fear. Eli looked between them. You sure this is a good idea? Last time we checked, your empire was ready to shoot you down. Xira's gaze stayed on the city below. Our father will protect us. Assuming he's still alive, Eli murmured. For a long moment, no one spoke. The ship descended through the golden clouds. Giant escort crafts appeared beside them. Xarth royal guards, their sleek forms moving with perfect precision. They've locked onto our signal, Lona said, checking the console. Eli's stomach dropped. Friendly lock-on or shooty lock-on? Xira didn't answer. The guards opened a wide energy gate in the clouds. The royal palace appeared beyond, a massive floating citadel of crystal and fire. Welcome back, princesses of Xarth. A deep voice boomed through the comms. The Emperor awaits, Eli exhaled. Guess that's our invitation. Inside the palace, everything gleamed. Walls of living metal, halls that sang softly with energy. Eli followed the sisters through long corridors. Everywhere he looked, alien eyes stared at him. Soldiers in golden armor, servants made of light, all paused when the small human walked by. He heard the whispers. That's the creature who came with them. A human? Impossible. He saved the princesses, they say. Xira ignored them. She moved like a blade, tall, proud, unflinching. Lona walked close to Eli, her hand hovering near him protectively as if afraid the palace might swallow him. Finally, the doors to the throne chamber opened. The sound alone made the air vibrate. The throne was not just a seat, it was a machine, a living construct of gold and light, pulsing with power. Upon it sat a giant, Emperor Carthon of Xarth, ruler of 1,000 worlds. His armor shimmered with galaxies, his eyes burned like twin suns. When he rose, the room itself seemed to bow. My daughters. His voice rolled like thunder. Alive, Lona ran to him. Father! Xira bowed deeply. We have returned by the will of the stars. The Emperor looked at Eli. His gaze was heavy like the weight of a planet. And the human? Eli tried to stand tall, though his knees wobbled. Eli Grant, sir, mechanic from Mars. Silence filled the hall. Then the Emperor's lips curved into something between a smile and a smirk. You saved my daughters twice, Eli shrugged. They kind of saved me back, too. A low rumble of laughter filled the chamber, and not mocking, but genuine. Then Xarth owes you a debt, human of Mars, Eli blinked. That's not something I hear every day. But before anyone could breathe easy, the sound of boots echoed behind them. A group of armored generals entered the chamber, their eyes cold and sharp. The leader bowed slightly. Your Majesty, we bring urgent news. The Emperor's smile faded. Speak. Rebel fleets have entered our orbit, the general said grimly. They claim to serve the High Council and they demand your surrender. The room fell silent. Xarth stepped forward. The Council betrayed us once already. Now they move openly. The Emperor's hands clenched. They dare challenge my throne in my own sky? Suddenly alarms blared through the palace. The walls trembled. From the windows, Eli could see explosions lighting up the horizon. Warships firing at the royal defense grid. They've started the assault. Lona cried. The Emperor turned to his guards. Protect the palace! Then a second explosion, closer this time. A piece of the ceiling cracked, debris falling. Eli pushed Lona out of the way, taking the hit on his shoulder. He groaned, clutching the wound, but stayed on his feet. Xarth's eyes widened. You're bleeding. Eli gritted his teeth. Not the first time today. The Emperor watched him, silent for a long moment. Then he raised one massive hand. Energy flowed around him like liquid fire. He spoke a single command in a voice of power that made even the walls tremble. Enough. The explosion stopped. The entire city went still. Outside, the royal fleet formed a shimmering barrier around the palace. The Emperor turned to Eli. You risked your life again. Not for empire or reward, but for instinct. You act like a warrior, yet call yourself a mechanic. Eli gave a weak grin. Guess I fix more than machines. For the first time, the great Emperor laughed. Then hear my decree, human of Mars. You are no longer an outsider. You are now Royal Engineer of Xarth. The hall echoed with gasps. Lona smiled proudly. Xarth looked at Eli with something new in her eyes. Something like trust. But before Eli could respond, a new sound shook the chamber. A dark mechanical hum. A shadow formed behind the throne, rising from the floor itself. It wasn't a man. It was a machine, tall, armored, and ancient. The Emperor's eyes widened. No. The Council has unleashed it. Eli stepped back. What is that? Xarth whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. The Emperor's own guardian turned against him. And as the machine's eyes flared red, the hall filled with chaos once again, the beginning of something far more dangerous than war. The great throne chamber of Xarth Prime was burning. Smoke drifted across the golden floor, and sparks rained from broken lights above. The air smelled of metal, ozone, and fear. The Emperor's voice still echoed in the chamber. The Council has unleashed it. From the darkness behind the throne, the giant machine stepped forward. It was taller than any living being Eli had ever seen. 10 meters of armor, glowing runes, and ancient wrath. Its eyes burned red, its arms ending in blades of light. Each step shook the ground. Xarth froze. That's the Sentinel Prime, Father's personal guardian. It should be loyal to you. The Emperor's tone was grim. It was loyal until the Council reprogrammed it. Now it serves no one but their corruption. The Sentinel's voice boomed through the hall, deep and hollow. By command of the High Council, the Emperor of Xarth is to be terminated. Lona grabbed Eli's arm. We have to move. But Eli stood still, watching the giant advance. He could see the mechanical veins running along its body, glowing circuits like arteries of molten fire. His mechanic's mind worked faster than his fear. He pointed. That thing's power core, it's unstable. If I can reach the back panel, I might shut it down. Xarth turned on him, furious. You'll die before you get near it. Maybe, Eli said. But if I don't try, everyone dies. The Emperor's eyes softened for a brief second. Human. Eli didn't wait for permission. He ran. The Sentinel roared, slashing its energy blade through the air. The shockwave threw soldiers aside like paper. Xarth jumped forward, drawing her plasma spear and striking the machine's leg. Sparks burst. Lona summoned a glowing energy shield to block the next hit. Go, Xarth shouted. Do it, human. Eli sprinted across the shaking floor, ducking under falling debris. The ground cracked as the Sentinel struck again, its blade slamming inches behind him. Heat seared his back, but he didn't stop. He reached the machine's leg, pulled open a panel, and saw the mess of glowing wires inside. Alien tech, alive and furious. "All right, big guy," Eli muttered. "Let's see what makes you tick." He pulled out his human wrench and a shorting clip, hands shaking. The machine twisted, trying to crush him, but Xarth leaped onto its shoulder, stabbing her spear into its neck joint. "Now, human!" she screamed. Eli found the main line, a pulsing blue core surrounded by black energy veins. He jammed the wrench in and twisted hard. The system screamed, lights flashing red and blue. Then, a blinding explosion of light. When the dust cleared, the giant was frozen in place, its eyes dimmed. A moment later, it collapsed with a sound like thunder, shaking the entire palace. Eli lay on the floor, coughing, covered in soot and blood. His tools were melted, his hand burned again. Lona rushed to him, her voice trembling. "Eli, stay with me." He smiled weakly. "Still here. Barely." The Emperor approached slowly, his heavy steps echoing in the silence. His armor was scorched, his crown cracked, but his eyes shone bright. "You stopped what my entire royal guard could not," the Emperor said. His deep voice softened. "You, a single human." Eli tried to speak, but only managed. "Just fixed what was broken." Xarth knelt beside him. "You didn't just fix a machine. You saved Xarth." The Emperor raised a hand and the remaining guards lowered their weapons. The chamber grew still as he turned to the assembly. "Let it be known across the Empire," he declared, "that this human, Eli Grant of Mars, is no longer an outsider. He is Royal Engineer of Xarth, defender of the throne and friend of my bloodline." The words echoed like music through the halls. Soldiers bowed. Even the golden walls seemed to hum with agreement. Lona smiled through tears. "You did it, Eli." He looked around, dazed. "I think I just earned a new job I never applied for." Xarth placed her hand on his shoulder, her expression softer than ever. "You earned more than that. You earned a place among us." But then, the Emperor raised his hand again. "There is more," he said quietly. "The Council's rebellion spreads beyond Xarth. War is coming, and when it does, we will need you again, human." Eli sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." The Emperor smiled. "Do not fear. You will not stand alone." Behind him, the palace lights flared back to life, shining across the broken floor. The twin suns outside rose over Xarth Prime, painting the skies gold and crimson. Eli stood weakly, looking out the window. He had arrived here as a poor mechanic from Mars, but now he stood at the heart of an empire, between war and peace, between two alien sisters who trusted him and an emperor who saw him as more than human. "Guess I'm not going home anytime soon," he said quietly. Xarth and Lona stood beside him, tall and proud, and as the royal banners of Xarth unfurled across the sky, the narrator's voice whispered, "Sometimes the smallest human can change the fate of worlds, and sometimes fixing one broken engine can save an entire galaxy." The camera zoomed out, the planet glowing beneath the stars, the golden ships rising like angels into the dawn. The story of the poor human mechanic was no longer a secret. It had become a legend.